The 1960s changed Britain forever, and the cars people drove became part of that story. From tiny city cars to luxury machines built for the rich, these vehicles shaped everyday life across the country. Today on Britain Rewind, we're counting down 10 iconic cars that defined 1960s Britain. And trust me, number 1 truly represented the peak of British motoring. Number 10. Ford Anglia. The Ford Anglia became one of the most recognizable cars of early 1960s Britain. Affordable, dependable, and easy to maintain, it appeared everywhere from factory towns in Birmingham to quiet suburban streets in Yorkshire. Families trusted it because it simply worked. Its most famous feature was the unusual reverse-slanted rear window, giving the Anglia a personality unlike anything else on British roads. Children recognized it instantly, while adults appreciated its practicality during a time when car ownership was becoming increasingly common. Inside, the cabin carried the familiar smell of warm vinyl, damp coats, and petrol fumes. The small engine wasn't powerful, but it had determination, and for many families, reliability mattered far more than speed. The Anglia became a symbol of ordinary British life during the early 60s. Whether it was parked outside schools, grocery shops, or seaside guesthouses during summer holidays, it quietly became part of the national landscape. Number 9. BMC Mini. Few cars transformed Britain quite like the Mini. Designed by Alec Isagones, it arrived at the perfect moment and quickly became a cultural phenomenon throughout the 1960s. Compact, clever, and full of personality, it made crowded British streets suddenly easier to navigate. The Mini appealed to everyone. Working-class families loved its economy, students loved its youthful image, and celebrities turned it into a fashion icon. It was one of the few British cars equally comfortable outside a factory gate or a London nightclub. Driving a Mini felt energetic and alive. The steering was sharp, the handling playful, and the tiny size gave drivers confidence in busy city traffic. On narrow London streets, the Mini felt perfectly at home. Its success in motorsport elevated the car even further. When the Mini Cooper won the Monte Carlo Rally in 1964, Britain celebrated proudly. Suddenly, this tiny British car had defeated far larger and more powerful rivals on one of the world's toughest stages. Even decades later, the Mini remains one of the greatest symbols of British automotive history. Number 8. Triumph Herald. The Triumph Herald offered British drivers something that felt surprisingly elegant during the early 1960s. Styled by Giovanni Michelotti, the car looked refined without appearing expensive or arrogant. One of its most impressive features was the incredibly tight turning circle, making it ideal for navigating narrow streets and crowded town centers. Drivers in older British cities quickly appreciated just how easy the Herald was to maneuver. Couples often chose the Herald for weekend drives through the countryside or along coastal roads. With the windows rolled down and the smell of sea air drifting through the cabin, it felt stylish in a quiet British way. Its separate chassis construction gave the Herald traditional engineering beneath modern-looking bodywork. But as newer unibody designs became more common later in the decade, the Herald slowly began to feel old-fashioned. Still, for many people, it represented affordable sophistication during one of Britain's most optimistic decades. Number 7. Vauxhall Victor. The Vauxhall Victor became a symbol of growing middle-class ambition during the 1960s. It was larger, more comfortable, and more substantial than the smaller family cars surrounding it on British roads. Salesmen drove Victors between business meetings across the Midlands. Families packed them with luggage before long summer journeys to Cornwall or Brighton. The car carried a sense of quiet respectability that appealed strongly to Britain's growing professional class. Inside, the bench seats and column gear selector created a spacious, almost American atmosphere. The styling borrowed heavily from American trends, with chrome details and sweeping lines that gave it a sense of confidence. On British roads filled with compact saloons, the Victor stood out as something slightly more ambitious. Owning one suggested steady employment and improving fortunes. As European competition became stronger toward the end of the decade, the Victor slowly lost some of its appeal, but for much of the 60s, it represented aspiration for ordinary British families. Number 6. Rover P5. The Rover P5 carried an unmistakable sense of authority. This was the car of senior managers, government officials, and wealthy professionals who wanted comfort without unnecessary flashiness. Its wide stance, walnut dashboard, thick carpets, and leather seating created an atmosphere of genuine British luxury. The doors closed with a heavy, satisfying sound that immediately suggested quality. The P5 became especially popular among politicians and businessmen during the mid to late 1960s. Seeing one parked outside a golf club or gliding through a cathedral city instantly communicated status and importance. Unlike sports cars designed to impress loudly, the Rover P5 projected confidence quietly. The ride was smooth, composed, and deeply comfortable over long distances. For many ordinary Britons who only saw the P5 from pavements or bus stops, it represented a world of success and privilege that felt distant but deeply admired. Number 5. Ford Cortina. The Ford Cortina may have been named after an Italian ski resort, but it became one of the most British cars of the entire decade. Introduced in 1962, it perfectly matched what ordinary drivers wanted from a modern family car. Affordable, practical, and stylish without being expensive, the Cortina appealed to factory workers, office clerks, and young married couples alike. It was a car built for real life. The lines were clean and modern. The cabin was simple but comfortable, and importantly for British winters, the heater actually worked reasonably well. Ford marketed the Cortina brilliantly, and sales quickly exploded across the country. By the late 60s, Cortinas filled roads, driveways, and supermarket car parks everywhere in Britain. The Lotus Cortina added even more excitement to the car's reputation by proving successful in racing and rally events. Suddenly, the Cortina wasn't just sensible transport, it also carried a hint of sporting credibility. Few cars captured the feeling of everyday British life during the 1960s more perfectly than the Cortina. Number 4. Jaguar E-Type. The Jaguar E-Type was the dream car of 1960s Britain. Launched in 1961, it immediately stunned the world with its breathtaking design and remarkable performance. Even people who knew nothing about cars stopped and stared when an E-Type passed by. Long bonnet, flowing curves, wire wheels, and the sound of that straight-six engine created something almost magical. For most Britons, owning one was impossible, but that hardly mattered. The E-Type became a national symbol of British engineering brilliance and style. Dealership windows attracted crowds simply wanting a closer look. Families traveling along country roads would fall silent when an E-Type suddenly appeared, heading in the opposite direction. Internationally, the car elevated Britain's reputation enormously. Even Enzo Ferrari reportedly described it as one of the most beautiful cars ever made. The E-Type wasn't merely transport. It was proof that Britain could still build machines capable of competing with the very best in the world. Number 3. Austin 1100. The Austin 1100 became one of Britain's best-selling cars during the mid-1960s because it perfectly suited the needs of ordinary families. Its hydroelastic suspension system delivered a surprisingly smooth ride, especially on rough British roads filled with potholes and uneven surfaces. Drivers immediately noticed how comfortable it felt compared with many rivals. The cabin layout was practical and thoughtfully designed. Families loaded children into the back seats for long drives to holiday destinations across Britain every summer. For many households, the Austin 1100 represented careful financial planning and gradual improvement in living standards. Buying one often felt like an important family achievement. However, as the decade progressed, reliability issues slowly began damaging its reputation. Owners experienced suspension problems and increasing maintenance costs, allowing newer European rivals to gain attention. Still, during its peak years, the Austin 1100 became one of the defining family cars of the British 60s. Number 2. Hillman Imp. The Hillman Imp arrived in 1963 carrying huge expectations. Built at the Linwood factory in Scotland, it represented a bold attempt to compete directly with the hugely successful Mini. The rear-mounted aluminium engine gave the Imp a lively character that many young drivers genuinely enjoyed. It felt eager, light, and surprisingly fun on winding roads through the countryside. One particularly clever feature was the opening rear window, effectively creating an early hatchback design before hatchbacks became mainstream. This gave the small car impressive practicality for its size. Young buyers especially appreciated the Imp's playful personality and compact dimensions. Around seaside towns and busy city centers, it felt perfectly suited to modern British life. Unfortunately, production problems and reliability concerns quickly damaged the car's image. Mechanical failures frustrated owners, and confidence in the model gradually disappeared. Even so, the Hillman Imp remains one of the most fascinating and ambitious British small cars of the decade. Number 1. Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow. The Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow represented the absolute peak of British luxury during the 1960s. Introduced in 1965, it combined traditional craftsmanship with advanced engineering in a way very few cars anywhere in the world could match. The interior was extraordinary. Hand-stitched leather, polished wood, thick carpets, and incredible attention to detail created an atmosphere unlike anything else on British roads. Technologically, Silver Shadow was deeply advanced with self-leveling suspension and four-wheel disc brakes, making it feel modern despite its traditional appearance. Most ordinary people only encountered the car from a respectful distance outside luxury hotels, expensive department stores, or grand country estates. But whenever they did see one, it created a sense of admiration and national pride. The Silver Shadow symbolized Britain's ability to produce world-class craftsmanship even during a decade of enormous social and cultural change. It wasn't simply a luxury car. It was a statement about British excellence itself. These cars did far more than move people from place to place. They became part of everyday British life during one of the country's most unforgettable decades. Which one is your favorite? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Uktork for more classic British car stories.